Hello everyone and welcome to the EdTech Demonstrator program, Accessible Tech Thursdays. Today we're covering mobile and it's with myself, Neil Beck. Erica Smith is joining us and we've got Stephen Cooper keeping an eye on questions. If you've got any questions, feel free to ask them throughout the session. If not, we'll take those at the end. And if you want to follow us on Twitter, my Twitter there is at Neil J. Beck and Erica's is at Erica Smith 2019. Okay, so today I decided to just start with a bit of an idea of how prevalent mobile phones are. So the majority of children own a phone by the age of 7. I think it's just over 52% was the figure that was given, and that was from a survey earlier this year. And phone ownership is almost universal once children are in secondary school. So I think the thing is, how does this information change the way we teach? What do we need to keep and what should we think about changing? So today, I'm just going to give you some ideas of how you can use mobile technology and the kind of accessibility features around it that can make it very productive for learners and able to meaning that they're able to access an extended curriculum, so things that are outside of the classroom. Okay, so the areas that I've split it into today are literacy, communication, organisation, travel, health, well-being, and phone accessibility. Some of those cover a few different areas, but I've put them in the kind of predominant area that I think they belong in. Okay, so literacy. Starting off with Otter. This is a really popular one for me. I use it to transcribe these sessions. It captures audio, transcribes and saves tags. It's available on any platform. You get 600 minutes a month free, and the usual sound quality rules apply. So just watch out for background noise. Make sure you've got a high quality microphone and try not to touch the mic itself. The tags mean that you can look back through any previous meeting that you've had, and connecting it to your calendar means that you can look back through any different event you've been to. It records both your voice and the transcription of your voice, so you can also see if there's any errors and quickly review it. This is available on Apple and Android. It's a Dolphin EasyReader, and it's a really good way to access multiple online accessible libraries. So you can access RNIB Bookshare, Project Gutenberg, Bookshare, and it's really easy to do that as well through this app. It's got really good inbuilt settings to change the font sizes and colors. And you can also, there's a built-in screen reader as well, so you can read that easily. It's really important to have accessible materials, and this is a really good way to do it for learners. Pictello is a great way to combine text, pictures, and audio to communicate what you're trying to teach. It's also really positive for learners trying to put together resources to teach other people about them. It helps develop literacy skills. It's really good for social stories, which are useful for learners on the autistic spectrum and those that need routine and to have a consistent approach to the way they go through the day. On the App Store, it's £18.99, but that's a permanent license. So pretty good value, actually, if you use it often. Moving on to communication. Just some key apps here. We've got Spread the Sign. This can give you sign language in multiple different languages. It gives you the video. It gives you the word that they're trying to do it, and it also means that you can slow it down. On the right-hand side there, I've got the different percentage speeds that it's played at. There's multiple languages, and those are always being updated. It's available on iOS, Android, and desktop. So you can go onto a website right now and type it in, or you can download it on your phone. It's got different speed options, and you can favorite the key ones as well. So it's really important to communicate with people who use sign. Microsoft Translator, we use this quite a lot for captioning, but also obviously use it for translation. It's yeah, good for different languages, abilities. You can join a chat group together, and you can output the captions into different languages. You can save the transcript, and the good thing is these days you don't need to be in the same location to do so. Most of the features require connectivity, although there are a few that don't. Envision AI is an app that you can hold up, and it will take a pic. It will read whatever you see on the screen. So it's available on iOS and Android. You can read it live, so you won't need to press anything or take a picture. Just hold it over the text, and it will read it out. There's a really simple interface because it is designed for those with visual impairments. But that cut down interface means that it's useful for others too. It has a describe scene, detect colors, and you can scan barcodes with it as well, which is really useful for learners with learning disabilities if you're trying to teach them how to go shopping and check what items are. There's a free trial, and monthly subscription is £1.99 a month. Annual is £19.99. Although it's available on iOS, I'd consider using Microsoft Seeing AI if you're on iOS, because it does very much the same things with the same features and is completely free. Be My Eyes is an app for those with visual impairments, and it means that you can connect to a helper and you can ask them a question. So that could be on your surroundings, so what can you see? Or it could be the example that we've got there in the picture. Which one is the tomatoes? And the answer is the one on your right. So you can sign up as a person who needs help, or you can sign up as a helper. And it connects very much like a video call would. So if you're a helper, you may get a call notification and you answer it and then answer the questions. So really helpful for blind people to help them with everyday tasks. And it's available on Android and iOS and completely free, which is brilliant. The really useful resource that I often share is the Call Scotland iPad and Android app wheels. If you're looking for some kind of app that is specifically based around AAC and kind of communication needs, this gives you a real wide span of options and categorizes them in useful ways. So are you after a text-based AAC device? Are you after a basic system? Does it need to use PECs? There's lots of things there that are appropriate for learners at very early ages and kind of later on in life as well. There's also apps for learners with dyscalculia and numeracy difficulties. So I really recommend checking those out. They're a great resource. Okay, so organization. This is key for many learners to try and kind of make their way through the day and to also organize themselves. So My Mind is a really good app for for Android and iPhone. It is clear and functional. It has a wide variety of options on there, as you can see, so you can add text, images, but importantly, those are symbol based as well, so learners can find it easier to work out what they want to do next. You can then export it as a PDF or a picture file or text. So it's really good for organizing your ideas on a project or something like that and having a visual representation, which is really useful for quite a few different learners. Tell me the time. It seems like a really basic thing, but it can really help learners, and it's just a very simple talking clock for Android. You have a landscape mode, as you can see on the screen on the right. There's some very large numbers there telling you the time. So if you've got a visual impairment, that's helpful. But if not, when you tap the screen, it will read it out. So it'll read it out in the format, it's 11:47. You can change that to AM to PM or 24-hour based on the phone's individual settings. So if you go into the setting and change that, then it will change the way the app reads the time to you. And if you combine that with a talking timetable, so something that you've put together on WhatsApp or on Messenger or on Google Keep, then it's a really powerful combination where a learner can not only tell the time, but they can also hear what they've got next and where to be. The iOS equivalent, so for Apple, you can use the inbuilt clock and then use the read aloud function. So we've created an Apple accessibility webinar that specifically covers things like that. So if you'd like to see that, then check out our YouTube playlist and you'll be able to find it on there. The details of that will be at the end. Todoist is really good for breaking down tasks for learners, and it can make quite an overwhelming task a lot simpler. And you can break that further and further down into steps to suit the learner. The good thing about this is that you don't need to be there physically to set this with the learner. You can set it remotely. You can set something for a learner as long as you're connected on the app. It's available on all platforms, so the learner could be accessing this on your app, but then you could be accessing this on a work laptop, just so you don't have to use your own personal devices, which obviously can cause some issues. And yeah, you can set group projects on it, and it's a really good way to yeah, make sure there's some accountability and some time-based and to help learners to plan. And it's really good to encourage them to start doing that for their own personal lives as well. On the right hand side here, we see an example of someone who's set out gardening and broken that down into different steps. Money Manager. There's a few different money managing apps on Android and iOS, but this is probably my favorite that I've seen so far. And what I really like about it is it's got clear categories and it categorizes by both symbol and by colors. They have a wide variety of symbols, so you can customize those and change them, so they're not just the built-in ones, which is good. There are some really good visual charts, and it's completely free. So it's the kind of thing that I might set up with a learner, get them to use it for a while, and then review it with them and see how it's working for them. This is really useful to kind of get an idea of how much things cost, to manage your life, and to understand how how to manage your expenses. Okay, travel. I've just picked out a few key ones. There's lots on travel, but these are the ones that have kind of come up recently. What 3 words is breaks down the entire world into 3 meter square postcodes. So I say postcodes, but they're actually 3 words. So the example on the right hand side we've got here is a police car that's pulled up next to loud.fame.sport. So if you type that into the app or you type that into the browser, you'll find that exact 3 by 3 meter square spot in Clifton, York. So this can make it really useful for learners who are trying to find their way in the world, and they need to either tell others where they are or they need to find their way to a particular place. So you can favorite places that you've been before, you can easily access them, and you can share the information. This is accepted by over 80% of UK emergency services, by the AA delivery companies, many businesses and hotels, and it's completely free as well. So it's really useful, and it's the kind of thing that you can easily turn into a game where you could set some tasks to kind of orienteer round a location to find certain things. Okay, tap to text is available on Android. I think there are equivalents on iPhone though, so please let me know in the chat box or message afterwards if you're interested in finding out about that. You can add pre-written text to the home screen through widgets. So widgets sit on your home screen, and rather than taking you into the app, they do something straight away. So these widgets automatically have, well, not automatically, you fill in the contact details that you want, you fill in the text message, and then that sits on your home screen and can then just be sent at the tap of a button. So it's great for emergencies. if a learner doesn't feel comfortable calling, or there's some kind of issue around that, then it can be a quick way to send a text message out. It's really good for routines. So if you might have a learner who has maybe kind of 3 or 4, and they send one when they're leaving for college, and they send another one at lunchtime to say that everything's okay. And this is a really good way for learners to kind of build up a bit of a routine, to maybe just start to take those more steps to kind of independence. And you can be inventive with this and really set things that the learner's going to enjoy doing. Maybe it's people they want to contact in particular. You could change it week by week, and it's free, but there are some kind of premium features based around how many of these widgets you can have. So health and well-being, which is a really important issue for many learners. Going to talk a little bit about screen time, because I'm aware that when offering all these tools, it's good to also make sure that there are some kind of controls and some ways of knowing how to limit this, so that this technology can be used in a healthy way. So there's an important nuance missing if we just talk about digital technologies in general. Scrolling through skinny Instagram models will naturally have very different effects than Skyping your grandmother or chatting with your school classmates. So that's a quote from Amy Orban, who's a psychologist at the Oxford Internet Institute. And they advocate a way of looking at this, that it isn't enough to say, oh, you're on your phone too much. Actually, what are you doing? What are the activities there? And are they harmful or are they useful? Because clearly there are some really useful things you can do with technology, as well as some really harmful. So on Android and Google, you've got, it's called Wind Down. And this feature puts your phone in a do not disturb mode. It doesn't allow you to blanket disable most of your apps like iOS does, but there are ways to do that. And in grayscale, it takes all the color out of your phone's screen, which has been found in studies to be overstimulating for many of us who are very kind of color based. So for Apple, the equivalent is downtime, and this allows you to set a few apps that can always be used, like your phone or text messaging, but it blocks all of the others. The blocked apps will be darkened on your home screen. And yeah, really useful and some good features there. Just to mention, there are some more kind of online safety features. The NSPCC ones are really useful. They're covering here like sexting and sending nudes, talking to your child about online safety, inappropriate or explicit content, online games, live streaming and online video apps, and online porn as well. So it's important to know that if a learner has a device, then these are all kind of risks that can occur. So if we're, as educators, advocating this, we need to make sure that there's checks and balances and safety put into place to make sure that these things, aren't an issue. So for online safety, just included a few more resources for you there that can help with codes of conducts, acceptable use for policies for students and staff, appropriate filtering and monitoring, student engagement and reporting. So we've got some JISC articles there, and a University of Suffolk self-review tool, which is really handy. Talking more about kind of apps that are based now, rather than kind of teacher support, but back to the kind of student element. Dailyo is a really useful app that it's a mood tracker. It's available on Android and iOS. Again, what I really like about it is the symbol sets there. So on the left-hand side of it, you can see select your mood, and it's got all the way from kind of a smiley face to a kind of bad, kind of awful face. On the right-hand side, it's got the different icons of what they've been doing. So work, relaxing, friends, dates, sport, all those kind of things. So if I was working with the learner and supporting them, I would rely on them to kind of fill this out through the week and have maybe a prompt come up and to fill out how they're doing each day. And then we could review this with them, and we could kind of see where the issues were and it would be a really helpful prompt to see how they're doing and when and what's happening. So yeah, it can be learner-led or collaboration with support. There's other similar apps, e.g. Pixel would give a nice colorful guide, but it doesn't have maybe the symbol-based access that this does. If you need more than tracking and you actually need to kind of highlight support strategies and have a more comprehensive tool, then it's worth considering Brain in Hand. And we'll be covering that in our mental health webinar. And that's an idea to give you how the output looks and how you can kind of see the monthly moods and what activities have happened and things like that. So it's a really good tracking tool. Mention FitnessPal, available on Android and iOS. Many people are counting their steps. It's a good way to kind of consider nutrition. There's lots of features. There's a free version, but also some premium options. And you can use lots of these apps with the inbuilt accessibility options if you've got learners with disabilities that stop them from accessing those. So we'll touch on those a little bit later. Down Dog is a free yoga workout available on Apple and Android. You can tailor your workouts so you can make them really simple. So it's very good for kind of beginners. You can favorite your favorite workouts. It uses video, so it's very accessible, and there are free and paid options, but the free options are pretty comprehensive. Nutrition, the NHS has created a resource based around nutrition apps. These are updated and reviewed, so I think it's quite a good website to go to look through these, rather than me putting things that may change and may be improved over time. Meditation is a really powerful tool, and it's worth considering tools like Headspace and Mindly. There are some free kind of introductory offers for these as well for educators that are worth looking into, educators and students. SleepTown is a really good way to develop healthy sleeping patterns. So it's another more fun way of making sure that learners don't use phones between certain times, and it allows them to have some flexibility and hold some responsibility for that themselves, rather than an app that completely cuts them off. So it's free with premium options, and the idea is that each night you have the option to build a house as long as you go to bed by a certain time, as in you stop using your phone at a certain time, and then you don't use your phone till a kind of designated wake up point. And you can make that flexible, so within so many hours, and over time you build up a town. So it's a nice kind of visual representation of how well you're meeting your targets. If you're looking for something that covers phone use during the day, maybe when a learner, you want them to be studying, then it's worth considering Forest, and that works on a similar basis where you grow a tree over a certain length of time. Okay, so what we've covered so far has been very much kind of apps and things that we can do with the phone. But what about how to access those apps and access the phone itself, including text messages and emails and things like that? So we're just going to touch on a few things from Apple. Now, Apple, we have our own separate webinar for this, if you check on the YouTube playlist afterwards. So I'm not going to go into great depth on this, but I will include these slides so that they're there as a pointer for you. The good thing about Apple is it's consistent across devices. So you can pick up an iPhone or an iPad, and it will look the same. There are new developments, so it is worth kind of keeping up to date with the more recent versions of iOS. And don't just consider the accessibility options, but also consider display and brightness, kind of Touch ID and facial recognition, keyboard settings, and Safari settings too. And these slides here go over just briefly what each of the tools does. So importantly here, you've got things like text-to-speech, zoom, and a magnifier. You've got different options with voice control, which means you can completely control your voice. You can change what the shortcut buttons do with the home button. For hearing, you can connect to hearing aids and you can toggle subtitles on and off. You can have guided access, which will shut down part of the screen, so you can only access certain parts, and Siri, which is voice control, which is very powerful too. The control center is worth mentioning as well, because you can put all of these accessibility shortcuts in an area where you can just swipe up from the bottom of the screen, which is really powerful. So something that's a bit of a crossover for both Android and Apple is dictation. So this is available on any keyboard. So if you're sending a text message, if you're sending an email, or if you're searching in a web bar, you can use your voice to type in things. So on Apple, it's there at the bottom left, the gray microphone symbol there. And on Android, it's on the bar just above the keyboard. And sometimes you might find that's not enabled for either of them. In which case on Android, you go to the Google keyboard settings. So that's on the keyboard itself, the cog symbol, and then just select voice typing and enable it. For Apple, it's under General, Keyboards, and then Enable Dictation. So Android built-in features. The difficulty is with Android compared to Apple is these aren't always consistent. On some phones, depending on what version they're running and how they've decided to present them, it can look slightly different. So this is just one example. Please message me if you have any problems accessing it, and I'll see if I can work out how to access it on your particular phone. So sometimes they'll be in settings themselves, there'll be an accessibility settings there, and really that would be my preferred way. But on this example phone, we go to additional settings, and then you've got accessibility in there. Not very accessible itself, but hopefully once you've gone into it and you've set it, you don't need to keep going back into accessibility. Again, it's worth considering those other settings: display brightness, touch ID, facial recognition, and keyboard settings. And when you go into accessibility, it will give you this view on the left. So you've got headings of general, vision, hearing, and physical. So for general, you can choose what the volume key shortcut does, and that's when you press both the volume keys. For an accessibility menu, you can add a tiny little symbol to the bottom right of your screen, so you can access those quickly. That's what I was saying about being able to get into the accessibility settings much quicker. And on the right-hand side, we've shown what the accessibility button looks like there. Okay, moving along to vision. Select to speak adds the ability to, once you've selected speech, to tap and listen to that. You can also have talkback, which will speak out any items on the screen. You can choose some different settings with your text-to-speech output, so it's important to get the right voice and speed and things like that. You can change the display size, magnification. You can invert colors, you can remove animations, you can have high contrast text, and there are also hearing settings there. They're a bit more basic, but you can change the audio balance, change your caption preferences, and also enable connection for hearing aids. There are other visual options outside of this, which again isn't a great feature of Android. It would be nice if they were all under one option. But if you go separately to general settings and then display, you can change things like the brightness level, reading mode, which makes the colors warmer. You can change the color scheme. You can add dark mode. And importantly, you can change the system font text size. So the middle picture there is an image of how that looks, and you've got a sliding bar along the bottom left, and you can either make that small, medium, or large. And then there are some additional sizes past that, and it'll give you a little prompt to access those. There's also light mode on the right-hand side, which is really good because it makes bigger icons, larger text, and there's less visual clutter on the screen. Physical options, you can add switches. We have another webinar based on switch use, but essentially you can control a mobile phone by pressing a switch And you can either do that by cycling through options and then selecting it, or by using two switches to cycle through with one and then select with another. Also changes auto rotate screen, which can be quite frustrating for certain learners, and vibration and haptic strength, which can be really useful for notifications for learners without sound. The other one that they didn't include in there, I wanted to add, so there's some really good security kind of features. So fingerprint is a good secure way, as well as face unlock for learners to access a phone without having to remember a password or type in something. It also means that if someone's observing them, they won't be able to get their password or anything like that. So that might be safer for some learners. The Apple Watch is worth considering because it can help you with timekeeping and organization. Has voiceover built in. There's Translator, has captioning built in on the phone. You can use Zoom on it, voice notes just at the tap of a button. And again, it has this Taptic engine where it'll vibrate to kind of let you know things. So that's really useful if you're using it to find your way through somewhere with directions. Apple Siri and Google Assistant are really powerful. There's lots of things you can do around setting reminders, around carrying out multiple items on your phone at once and automating your phone. And yeah, if anyone's interested, we'll probably look at doing another webinar of that in the future. Okay, so that brings me to the end of the webinar. Hopefully you've had some useful apps there and some useful accessibility features. That brings us to the end of this focus area. And I'm just going to quickly just change my screen share to show you the upcoming apps. So if I click on that link there, which is bit.ly/ATTHURS, that takes us to the permanent site where you can see all of the upcoming webinars. So next one we've got Thursday is Thursday the 10th of December is assessment. So we'll be looking at how you look at with either a casual observation or a more rigorous process to find out what learners need. We've got an advanced physical kit webinar, Thursday 17th of December. And then we've got a bit of a Christmas break, and we're coming back with some much needed mental health on Thursday the 7th of January. We've then got a sensory session on Thursday the 14th of January. That'll have drop-in. So if you've got any particular issues, then yeah, please feel free to bring those to the group. And we've also got all of our previous webinars there. So hopefully you'll find that useful. Just going to switch back to the presentation. Okay. All right, there we go. So if there's anything that you found useful today that you want to have more assistance with, and you're a mainstream school or college, then go to edtech-demonstrator.lgfl.net. If you want to access the YouTube channel, we've got that on there alongside Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook. And yeah, thank you for attending. We've got the drop-in session now, so I'll just give a few minutes for anyone who wants to put questions into the chat box, and we'll have a look at that. But yeah, thank you everyone for attending, and hopefully see you next week.